Attention please. This is an emergency transmission from the Oh No 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 podcast. Oh no no no, Andrew Barrowman. Oh no no no, my wee laddie. I just want to go to Sacramento. I am not staying here in Kirkcaldy. Hello and welcome to an emergency podcast as we are still reeling from the news that for the second time this season, and it is not Christmas yet, the Rovers are without a manager. Without so much as a whisper beforehand, a statement landed at 2:45 yesterday explaining that Neill Collins, after 109 days in the job, is leaving for sunnier climes, with made-up sounding USL Championship side Sacramento Republic buying out the release clause in his contract. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me to try and make some sort of sense out of it all, I am delighted to be joined by the largest Oh No 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 podcast panel to date. First of all, we've got Blair Hopcroft. Blair, it's been a while, mate. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind 12 hours, isn't it? Really? I'm in shock, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one. We've got Robbie Weir as well. How are you, Robbie?
Yeah, 18 minutes it took after releasing the tweet saying that we had the post-match podcast to then getting the news that Collins was gone. Now, I'm pretty sure in that last podcast that there was a lot of chat about, the players can just go off and enjoy, like, Christmas, and we don't need to worry about any games coming up over the next weeks, wee bit. We can come from Olivia, and then we've got the January window. See everything I said in that last podcast? Just fucking scrap it. Just pointless.
Yeah, disregard an awful lot of what was said yesterday, I think. We also have we've got Carol Allison-Smith next. How are you, Carol?
All right. They say a week's a long time in football. 18 minutes seems a long time in podcasting, it seems. What the... Yeah, so many expletives. But anyway, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, that's a good point. There could be some industrial language slipping into this one as we try to get a head around things. There certainly was yesterday. We've got Voice of Starks Park, Allan Douglas Munn as well. How are you, Allan?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, I've not even had a chance to listen to yesterday's podcast. That's how much the whole world's gone mad. I mean, I honestly don't remember before this season a Rovers manager ever leaving and it coming completely out of nowhere, like nobody saw it coming, and it's now happened twice in like 3-4 months. Like, to repeat what most of us said yesterday, just what the fuck?
Yeah, that's it. Normally you would start with like unprecedented. No, we have precedent for this. If nothing else, we have at least been through this before. We've got Graeme Meldrum as well. How are you, Graeme?
I'm very well, yeah. Interesting, isn't it? There was certainly something different happening when I was doing my Christmas shopping in Sainsbury's with my phone pinging like mad.
Yeah, it's just aye. Really just very, very silly, I think, ultimately. And we've also got, rounding us off for today, we've got Scott Fleming as well. How are you, Scott?
I am not bad. I mean, to say that we were thinking there was going to be another podcast before Christmas, we were on about saying, oh, we'll find some time. I didn't think it was going to be within 24 hours, put it that way.
No, it's actually quite good on that front, because I really, there should have been like a nice big lovely Christmas message at the end of that episode yesterday, and I just completely forgot. So at least I'm getting a second shot at that, if nothing else.
We're going to use this
totally
podcast for some good.
Totally worth it.
If we're going to use this podcast for some good, can we at least promote that with Kirkcaldy Food Bank are continuing to do their Christmas drive? So please, if you take the opportunity to listen to this podcast, get right behind it and buy a voucher for them. So yeah, that's available on their website.
Yeah, 100%. They're obviously really, really vital work that they do, and they're very reliant on like the Christmas period's donations to basically fund the rest of the year. So yeah, definitely echo that. Go to the website, it's the links in the description, all that kind of stuff, and make sure you support them because they are doing really essential work. But let's get back to the matter at hand. So, Sacramento Republic. There's a football team I'd heard of before yesterday. They are. I've been doing my research. So they are the first majority Native American owned US professional sports team. They had a takeover last year and they were bought out by a tribe called Wilton Rancheria, which sounds like a kind of holiday destination rather than a Native American tribe. But they own a series of casinos. But they have just pledged an investment, and this is where you start to see why this might have come about, an investment of $217 million into Sacramento Republic. So they are building a new stadium and a concert venue in downtown Sacramento. They start building that in January, effectively to get themselves in the position where when the MLS expands, because you can't just get promoted, you have to wait to be invited, they want to be at the kind of top of that tree. And yeah, I'd say that's Sacramento, which is the state capital of California, and Money Magazine rank it as one of the top 50 cities to live in the United States. Blair, why do you think Neill Collins has chosen to leave the Rovers?
Oh my God. Like, yeah, why would you? You've got the prom, you've got Valenti's, yeah.
The big Aldi or the big Lidl, whatever one people get
Got
excited
both.
about. Or
Got both.
wow.
Yeah, I mean, from that point of view, I'm the same as you. I have to say, I had to Google what is the team in Sacramento called because I didn't know. I had no clue whatsoever. I mean, from his point of view, I suppose it probably makes an awful lot of sense. Like, you're offered an opportunity to live in California and work for somebody who's ploughing $217 million into your new venture. It's probably an opportunity that doesn't come up too often. But what a dick, eh? What a dick.
Yeah, it really does occupy that space where you're like, every part of this is really understandable, and at the same time, it's like outrageous. I'm furious about this.
Didn't he see it coming? Like, nothing, not even a scrap of a rumour. Which, I have to say, massive kudos to the current board, because it's probably the only kudos I get in the night. But massive kudos, because this time 5 years ago, that would have been all over Pie and Bovril last Sunday when the first approach was made. Like, it had been everywhere. So, I mean, it's a much tighter ship in that regard, and that's the positive.
Yeah, I suppose. If you want. That doesn't actually make that much of an odds. If I'd read it in the paper
No, it
before
really
I read it
doesn't.
at the website, I still would have been surprised and probably felt the same way about it. But I take your point. Graeme, give me your overriding thoughts at the moment.
So it's a bit like Blair. Like, what a dick. I was fully behind Neill Collins. I thought it was the best name that came out after Ian Murray was dispensed with. Delighted we got him. Gutted he's gone. Don't know. Disappointed he's gone. I think gutted would be going over the score. I think looking back, and I think we all do a wee bit of that after he has gone and gone, well, actually, did I back him? Was there evidence that things were getting better? Was it just a stroke of luck? Did he actually do a lot? Because thinking back, we played the three at the back against Ayr. We beat Ayr. We then played three at the back against Partick Thistle and went, this is crap, let's ditch it at half time. We then went with the same team that did well in the second half against Partick, and the next game against Morton, and they were stinking. So you start to look, was he good because he changed things, or was he just like, this isn't working, I'll try someone else until that doesn't work? So I don't know. It's difficult. The timing's crap. Hopefully the release clause had a few zeros in it. which maybe helps. Maybe that's the security of signing somebody on a 3-year deal, is the fact that you've got a release clause with some money in there. But timing's shit, innit? Because we were all on a high. We're like, excellent, 2 wins in a row. Here, wee bit of Christmas time. Here we go. Let's see what we can do. But we'll see what Muppet gets linked with the job next.
There's a list.
And they're all the same
It's like a-
Muppet.
It's the same list as last time. It's not even not even dropped off Andy Barrowman's like frequently read documents on his Windows Explorer sidebar. Still there.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting thing how our friends from what did I call them? Wilton Rancheria have very clearly gone like, he's our guy. Like, not to borrow a phrase, but he's very much their first choice. And I think it speaks to the reputation that he has in the US and how they obviously think about their football versus the way that we do. Because
winningest.
Ridiculous. But it's a bit, because he came in with us and we're all the same. You're a bit like, he's done some stuff in America and it's like, might as well qualify for half points or whatever. And so we were looking at what he did at Barnsley and all this stuff. And you're like, yeah, it looks like he should be all right. Whereas they are very clearly of the absolute opposite because they're in that environment. They're like, this guy won Coach of the Year at this level, in this competition, whatever it was, a year or two ago. And they've just quite clearly gone, he's the best guy out there. We're going to go and get him. And we're just going to pay off a contract, which, whatever this clause is, as you say, Graeme, hopefully it's a pretty big one. You would have to assume so, given it's only 110 days old. It's an odd thing, because it's not like he's been setting the heather alight here. And actually, this is the thing is, I'm annoyed about the disruption more than I am about the Neill Collins of it. Because all my sort of Neill Collins optimism was basically rooted in potential rather than what he'd actually done. I was kind of like, I like the way he handles himself. I can sort of see what he's building towards, but it was taking quite a lot of time. And that's now the annoying thing is, we just have to start that again. And we've not. It almost feels like that's basically been wasted time. Because it all felt like it was building to something. Didn't really achieve very much at all. I don't feel like we're further forward as a football club than we were. Now, if Neill Collins was staying in place, there was building blocks there, but we're effectively just back to square zero. Except with one kind of possible change. Earlier on, the kind of shout was put out on the Twitter to look for kind of questions. Thank you to everybody who responded to that, who put stuff in. I'm not going to call anybody out by name. I've kind of condensed. There was like kind of recurring themes, as you can imagine. So I've kind of condensed those in, and we'll sort of recycle them as we go through. But one of those, Allan, was kind of around what I was alluding to there. As a football club, it feels like we're basically where we were in August when Murray left. Like, I don't think we've really progressed from there. But if you were a prospective manager, are we, if anything, a slightly less attractive proposition than we were back then?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we are not in. I mean, I can't really say we're not in as good a position because we sacked Murray after one game. We had 0 points, but it was seen as it was Airdrie. Airdrie always beat Rovers. They've still got a really strong squad. They're still one of the favourites for the league. Whereas now, we are where we are. But the flip side of that is it comes with a lot less pressure. You would argue, like we were probably still one of the bookies' favourites for the league at that time. Now I don't know what odds you're getting on us winning the league, but you're not going to get many folk daft enough to put any money in it. The bookies make enough money without you just giving them a present. So there's not really that same pressure. I don't think. Airdrie are rotten enough that we shouldn't, touch wood, be dragged back into that. So a large part of it's going to come down to as well when the new person comes in. If we get them in before the end of the year, I appreciate that's like next week and we've got Christmas in the way first, then they get a whole January transfer window. There's probably already going to have been some conversations had behind the scenes. I don't suspect for a minute that John Potter's been sitting doing nothing. He'll have already started speaking to agents, maybe even started having conversations with players and things like that, clubs if it's going to be loan deals. So it's all going to be down to whether the new guy fancies them as well. But they're going to get a good start at it, hopefully. If we totally bollocks it up like we did the last time and take far too long to get them in and then appoint someone just after the transfer window closes, then you argue it probably becomes a less attractive job at that point because a new guy is going to be thinking, well, I've got no chance to actually bring my own people in. So, yeah, you can see both sides of it. I mean, we're still a big club in the Championship. You've got to imagine we're still a pretty attractive kind of club for managers looking to kind of maybe take that next step with a view of then moving on somewhere bigger or someone who's been out of the game a while looking to get back in.
Yeah, I suppose if you're the kind of guy who considers himself to be in the frame to be Raith Rovers manager, I don't know if enough has changed since August that you would now be like, I would have taken it then, I'm not going to take it now. But, Robbie, do you have concerns, given the protracted nature of the recruitment process first time around, that we are having to go back to that pool so soon?
Yeah, because the pool's absolutely shit. It's very, very brown. Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of people have made about like what happened with the recruitment process before. So the party line is that Collins was first choice, and that's been widely derided from the outside. It's like, well, why did you go for David Healy then? And part of me does wonder if, like, with Neill Collins, I don't think he's been going into the Rovers job thinking, right, this is a springboard to get myself back to America. I don't think that's the way that it worked at all. I think what's basically happened with it is that as part of the negotiations, he'll have been well aware of what's happened with Ian Murray. He literally went on another podcast with some American bloke, like even before he signed. The American host was like, and did you see a team in Scotland was like, sacked their manager after one game? And it's like, yeah, that's just the crazy world that we live in now in terms of a football manager. I can see it from both sides, etc., etc. So he's compass mentis going in that, like, look, this last club were maybe quite quick to sack their manager. So you would imagine that he's looked in terms of both sides of it, like if he does really well. You don't know whether he's initially gone in and asked for that release clause, which might cause the delay for things to take so long. Again, as football fans, we're never privy to sort of the behind the scenes of what gets put into contracts and what goes on. Much like in the same way that we didn't know why Aidan Connolly hadn't been playing for the last 4 to 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden he's back in the team. Yeah, the pool of managers is not inspiring at all based on the list of the Courier. But then again, you look back to the original recruitment of Neill Collins, and nobody had Neill Collins down as a name that we would go for. So you've got to take that in mind, that it might again be someone completely blue. But I do think you have to ask questions in terms of, I think certainly from the outside it will look like Rovers just having a banter season, and I think it's hard to argue against that given we're now on our third manager for the year. We account for 100% of the sackings stroke departures of managers in the Championship, and we've had 2, nobody else has had one. I think that there's a lot of questions to be asked with regards to it. And I think, again, I said this when Ian Murray went, and I'll say it again, it's a lot easier to appoint a bad manager than it is to get a good one. And we all know the names that we're looking about. You see the reaction to that Daily Record piece that came out earlier this afternoon linking Liam Fox. I'm just going to say it categorically outright, much in the same way. You're going to get a very visceral reaction, much in the same way if you ask me again, do you want Dougie Imrie as your manager? And my response still remains the same. It's absolutely not. Yeah, Liam Fox for me, if you're seeing someone Liam Fox linked with the job. Shred it with Nacho Novo, just not good enough. Not for us, not the standard that we need, as far as I could see. Like, just to quote Jose Mourinho, a specialist in failure.
I think the Daily Record is Limmy memeing you there, Robbie. Like they've got a reaction. That's what they wanted. That's all that is. That's just making noise on a Sunday.
But you say that, but then that's how Gary Locke came about, isn't it? So,
well,
No,
he
he
is
interviewed
that,
well.
Robbie.
horrendous.
Not as bad as the guy suggesting John Hughes written off.
Oh, I will. I'll say it now, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it clear. I'll burn the place to the ground.
I'll be right
I
with you,
will
Blair.
burn it down. I'll stand by it. I'll burn it to the ground. With him inside? No, not with him inside. That's too far.
What was the last thing I said before we started recording this? Could we please try not to libel anybody? That includes incriminating yourself in any future arson plots. So just a quick point, a point I want to just pick up from what you said there, Robbie, about you don't think that Neill Collins has done this as a kind of short-term sort of springboard to get back to America. That's where I am with that as well. Like, I think that's a very easy kind of narrative to jump to, but it looks like I've seen a couple of different places that he has bought a house in Kirkcaldy, which I think for me that's kind of all the evidence that I need that this has come around as a surprise to him as much as anything. I don't think this is like, look, I could do with picking up 3 months' wages until I can get back across the pond. Like, it does feel a little bit like this job offer has come up, and it's kind of too good to turn down.
It's a very trite point to make, but if someone offers you, and the figures that you see bandied about, I'd seen one of the group chats on him 5 times his current salary at Rovers to live in California compared to Kirkcaldy. See if Sun Life of Canada offered me 5 times my wages that I get in my current employer. Allan's waving as well. I think anyone would do the same to live in a warm place. It's
Life
a
for life.
natural. Can he all be physics teachers?
I just moved for 2
I'm
times.
not even a physics teacher, I'm a chemistry teacher. Stop saying physics.
That's me in the libel book. That's me in the libel book.
Would you move to the physics department for 5 times the money?
Maybe.
Oh, I forgot to mention the physics department is also where Santa Monica Beach is.
I'm out.
My
Fight for life.
California geography might be off there. Right, couple other points on this. Carol, is there an element of living by the sword and dying by the sword for the board here, given how ruthlessly Ian Murray was sacked? Can they have any qualms if a manager decides to walk out on them?
No. They made their bed and they had to lie in it, and a lot of us supported it, and a lot of us said that it was a stupid thing to do. And I didn't like the way they did it. I thought that it was very unprofessional, and it highlights our lack of the human factor in the club. And you can't. It's an opportunity, I imagine, that he can't turn down. So he's got to take it. And the same way as the club, that it was an opportunity to sack Ian Murray to start the season afresh, they had to take it. It's not a nice place to be in, I don't think.
No, it's sorry, Carol.
No, you go.
It's again, it's something Robbie touched on a second ago. Like, it's very easy to get it wrong. Like, if you decide to roll the dice, there are 6 sides of the dice. You know, it's when you've got a manager and you're thinking like, could something more? Could we get an extra bit out of this? Like, is he not quite doing the full thing? If you decide to make that change, Andrew Barrowman described it himself as bold. I kind of put that label on it and said, look, we are bold. We want to be bold. Like, this is one of the downsides of bold. And it's still like justifiable if you want it to be. It's not a case of like, you can still say, I don't think he was the right manager. We decided to make that change. I imagine he will stand by that. But these are the... All right, nobody guessed this specifically. These are the types of scenarios that you then open up. You're making your world more volatile by changing these kind of people around, and this is the kind of thing that can then happen.
Looking like a true financial advisor there.
Well,
no one's done the
you've got
risk
to try
assessment.
and maximise your growth and minimise your volatility, and it's all over the place.
And manage the risk. With the sacking of Ian Murray, it sounded like someone asked the question, will it get any better? But no one asked the question, it's how shit can it get?
Yeah.
And a month without a manager. And a month, and it feels like no one's risk assessed. It's like, what is the worst that could happen? And
for me,
a month without a manager.
It's very easy to say that. I think you can only really say that with hindsight, because I think at that point we were 3 points behind. I think that if you roll the dice like at that point and you were to do it again, I think that everyone's going to jump into the side of, oh no, we should keep Ian Murray, it's the injuries, etc. But then at the same time, you can see exactly why they've done it in the context of that sort of situation. Now, this isn't me. I know that this is going to get framed as happy clapping. I don't care. It's very much in the context of that situation. We were 3 points behind. You get potentially the manager gone, and then you can start moving forward from there, and then you can start your season strongly. Obviously, now we know that's not how it panned out. Now we're talking a completely different ball game, I'd say. But yes, it's just tricky to see where we go.
I was going to say the same. Hindsight's 2020. Like it is easy to look back, and it has been a disaster. Like I don't think anybody.
Yeah,
I don't even think the board are going to look at this situation and go, "Well, this has turned out rosy, hasn't it?" Like they're no daft. But I do agree. Like there is. I mean, it was again. I don't know who you are, but whoever Raith Stats is, love you, loving your work. There was the bit about it was the last 12 games of Murray's tenure and the first 12 games of Neill Collins, and I think there's 2 points of difference in terms of the total points tally over those 12 games. You're going, well, I think the body of evidence is that we weren't necessarily any worse off without him. I don't know, but hindsight's 2020. You'll never know whether or not it was the right thing to do or not.
I want to bring Scott in because I think, as much as a lot of us are saying things with hindsight, I think Scott, to be fair, was on a lot of this much earlier. But it's what Carol said there, and I think this is where I'm coming around to, where if you look at that back half of last season under Ian Murray, it feels to me like the thinking from the board must have been, to get to where they end up, it must have been, this could be better. In terms of like, look at the players we've got, look at what we did first half of the season. You know, we should be able to go from here to there. There should be an extra bit, and he's not getting out of them. And with hindsight, I don't think anybody went, well, how is he getting us to that point? What's stopping us from being further down? And I know what you're saying, Blair, about the points totals over the last 12 games and all this kind of stuff. But fundamentally, Ian Murray had a second. And then we've been in the bottom half. But I see, sorry, Scott, I said I was going to bring you in, and then I just didn't. I mean, first of all, you give us your kind of your overall thoughts, but then, I'm interested to hear kind of now that it's over, what your kind of summary of the kind of Neill Collins. Can you have an era if it's less than 4 months? I don't know what's smaller than an era. A period, a stint, yeah. Brief tenure.
I think yesterday genuinely felt like the exact same I felt on, what was it, August 5th or whatever it was, after the Sunday after the Airdrie game, when if you had told me that a tweet like this was coming out, I would never have believed you. Like, it was the same feeling. It was actually possibly even more bizarre yesterday, but it was... I've still been just thinking, like, what other than kind of what you have already said, pretty much all he's about in terms of his wages going up. He's going to a league that he knows well already, so he knows likely the sort of players he needs to go out and get and the sort of budgets and stuff his clubs will all be working with, and he knows that league. But yeah, I think in terms of then when we go back to, like, has he used us as a stopgap, I'm kind of not sure with it all, because I don't think he has it deliberately, but at the same time, I don't think he was here for a long time. If he's telling the board straight away in the statement saying that he had a desire to go back to the US, he clearly in his head thought, maybe if I even get... I think he maybe thought, if I can get this season, maybe not 3 months, but if I can get this season and get a job offer at the end of the season or even into the start of next season, I think that's probably what was more likely to happen. And then there still would have had to be like fees and stuff involved because he's in a longer term deal. But I don't think he deliberately came in thinking I'm gone before Christmas. That's just not what's happened at all. But yeah, I just hope in terms of with the release clause, we'll never know the exact amounts of it. But I really hope that we've not been sort of scunnered here, and I think that we'll get what we ask for or what's on the paper, because we've done it in the past. How many times have we had release clauses on young players or other sort of players that were in the end of their deals, but we got like cones and bibs for them, basically. It was like, yeah, you just got to hope going forward that if we've been able to get this money, then this is the money to then go and get the new guy. Preferably, I think you're going to have to be in the market for somebody that's not in a job, because we need to not be 30 days from here going, who's going to be Raith Rovers manager? Because we were there at the start of the season, and to be quite frank, it was a nonsense at the start of the season. To be getting 30 days and the new manager no getting a transfer window, and this is what we said about Neill Collins as well, was everybody needs to give him time because he needs to get his own players in. And I took a bit of time to get used to Neill Collins because, again, as it was known, I thought it was very harsh to get rid of Murray when they did. But I think I was getting more to the side. I was starting to actually get into the Collins stuff and going, no, give him time, give him his players, and let's see how we go. And we were starting to get a wee bit better. And then it's all just been thrown right back up in the air, and we're back to square one again. And I tell you what, just the last thing, I think we feel like what Watford feel like every season. They get about 3 managers a year. And so, I don't know, if this is what they get every year, God help them being football fans, like.
Yeah, it's not great. We talked a lot the last couple of weeks about trying to get consistency in the back four. Just same manager for a while would be
Nice.
would be all right. I don't know. It might have been one of you guys. Someone pointed out earlier that we're going back down to Somerset shortly, and we'll have been down 3 times with 3 different managers. It's Christmas. It's ludicrous. Right, tell you what. Let's have a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll keep mumping and moaning about this.
A football club is nothing without its community, and this Christmas, there are people in our community who need your help. Kirkcaldy Food Bank provided enough food for more than 368,000 meals last year, and sadly, demand continues to rise. A third of all the support they provide goes to children, and we have to make sure that they can continue to help those who need it most. The Kirkcaldy Food Bank Christmas campaign has a number of vouchers available to buy to make it easy for you to help cover the cost of this vital assistance, and they start from just £5. Please visit kirkcaldyfoodbankcharity.org.uk to find out more and to donate today.
Graeme, I'm going to come to you to ask a bit of a question about how long this has been in the works. So, Sacramento Republic, that's what they're called, they parted company with their last manager, except they'll have used weird corporate American speak for saying that, on the 4th of November. Now, they are in their close season, so they weren't necessarily working, too quickly. But as you would imagine Neill Collins was up towards the top of that. So kind of two-part question then. First of all, do you think it's disingenuous doing interviews and all this kind of stuff if you know you're going to be leaving, or does the manager just not have a choice? Do you have to just carry on? And then also, given it must have been in the works for a while, do you hope that the Rovers do hopefully, have a bit of a plan in place.
I think what would be interesting is if it had happened a week before we had been told it happened. I think if it happened on the run-up to Falkirk, you then have some reasoning behind the Falkirk performance. And then I think you have some reasoning behind the pre-match Dunfermline interview being about 30 seconds long. Yeah? But it's supposed to have happened after the Dunfermline game. When he then comes on and is like, gives a bigger interview before the game on Friday. He then stands on Friday. I was watching, I got the last 15 minutes of the game on the telly on Friday, and Neill Collins was barking out instructions constantly at the players. You just heard him barking out instructions to the players, and you're like, what a guy. Making sure the guys are fulfilling his plan. Then comes on the interview, does everything like that, and then the next day, boom, away. I think the biggest thing for me is he wasn't allowed to disrupt the backroom team and get all his own guys in. Yeah, he wasn't allowed to get rid of Mickey. So Mickey's still there.
I think, sorry to jump in, I think to an extent he has done, though. I think there's been a fair bit of change around like the analytics and all that kind of stuff. There has been a fair bit of movement around.
But it's not as if he's not brought in his people. The people seem to be more Scottish football wise.
Is that because
so it's not like
there's a coach.
Aye.
He's brought that coach in.
And then 20 are going to go to America with him.
Yeah.
So I think there is still a stability there to a certain extent. But then again, some of the players don't need stability. Because look at Lewis Stevenson and Paul Hanlon. How many managers have they played under? Yeah.
They brought him over the force.
Just Jonas for managerial careers. But that, I mean, on that point, actually, Blair, are there other, a couple of people I want to kind of point out, guys that I feel sorry for.
Yeah, there's a few of those.
Yeah.
The whole squad.
First of all, particularly I'm thinking the young guys. So like Kai Montague, for example. Kid's, 17? So he's not been through any of this kind of stuff. But he's basically just battled his way into the team. And now he's with Lewis Gibson to a fair degree. But tell me how you think Jordan Docherty received that news yesterday.
Totally. So there is a bit of me genuinely wonders if that transfer will even happen. Because, I mean, I don't understand the ins and outs of Scottish football contract negotiations and stuff. But remember Callum Elliott was signed a pre-contract with Livingston and then signed for us. Like, I'm not sure how ironclad these things are. I think they give the players a lot of protection. I think the clubs can't necessarily go, actually, we've changed our mind, would they fancy you anymore? We're not going to take you on. But I think it does give the player the opportunity to go, actually, I've got a better offer elsewhere. I think I'm going to jump ship. He's bound to be wondering what the hell he's in for. Like, because it was made abundantly clear by Collins, by him, and by Davy Hancock in the interview that he was Neill's man and he's worked with him before and they've got a great relationship. And I really, really feel for the guy and I would not blame him in the slightest if it came out tomorrow that he's decided to cancel his contract and seek employment elsewhere, because quite frankly, this is not what he signed up for. But I do feel for the rest of the players as well. Like, I'm presuming they didn't know anything on Friday night when we played that game. Certainly listening to Aidan Connolly talking on the BBC after the game and stuff about, like the new manager's come in and he's been great and blah, blah, blah. And I know a lot of it is tokenism. It's what you say. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to come out and go, new gaffer's a bit of a knob, didn't really like him. But it's just like how much can one squad really take? And it's like you say, Kai Montague fights his way back into the team. Kieran Freeman's just got himself fit again and back in and playing again, and potentially now has a third manager in 4 months to try and impress. Like, the whole thing, it's just rotten timing. And as much as, like I said at the beginning, as much as I can understand why Neill Collins and why it's right for him and right for his family, the timing is absolutely abysmal. Like, if their league doesn't start till March, like, there's a bit of me going, could this not have waited a wee bit? Like, if the club knew, could they not just... But then I think, actually, no, because you want to get the new guy in and give them a transfer window. But are they going to be able to get somebody in before this transfer? I mean, it's 12 days until this transfer window opens. Who's interviewing on Christmas Day? No one. So you're instantly a week down the line. Do you know what I mean? You've got somebody in the door 10 minutes and you're going to hand them a war chest. It's a shambles. The whole thing is a shit show.
Yeah, one of the other questions that came in was posed, Allan. Is there merit, do you think, in not making a quick appointment and actually just saying, can someone, for 1 year, this is enough disruption, it's enough trying to adapt. Mickey, John Potter, until the summer.
I can see the pros for it, I suppose, in terms of it means that there's less disruption. You know, they're going to be working for the rest of the season with guys that they know. It potentially opens up some better options, you know, by the end of the season. People who might find themselves out of a job in the summer that are far better options than some of the utter garbage that were on the Courier's list and the Daily Records, you know, some of the usual names that we're seeing. The flip side of that, of course, is if people are, you know, gives more time for other people to have sat the manager, and, you know, along the A92, it seems almost inevitable that it's going to happen. So the longer you wait, the more potential competition you've got as well for new managers. I appreciate I've not actually given you an answer, and I'm going to be getting splinters in my butt cheeks here for sitting on the fence. But I think the simple thing is there is no easy answer here. There really isn't. There are reasons why you might want to do that, but ultimately you want. I think it comes down to if we can get a guy in place either in December or early in January, so they've got 2 or 3 weeks of the window available to them, do it. There's absolutely no point at all in appointing somebody new in February. Like, bringing someone in with no chance to bring in new players, there's just no point in doing it. So that is probably more of a timing thing. If they can get the right person in quickly, then I think we'll have to try and do it.
Came up we never got, though, just really quickly. We never got a new manager bounce. Maybe this is the new manager bounce.
Maybe we'll get a double
We did 20 minutes. 20 minutes, we got a new manager bounce.
But we ended Falkirk's
in the air.
run, so that was quite funny.
That was true.
I know they're clinging onto their invincible at home passion.
I noticed that.
Yeah,
we never
Robbie,
did
you were
that.
shaking your head at the premise of that last question. So presumably you're not automatically in favour of leaving the guys in charge for the rest of the year. How much of that comes down to like needing a change effectively? Is it basically a case of you just want someone else in so that we can basically move on?
So I think with this one, for me, I would say, like, look, we're not a club like, for instance, Manchester United, where you can get a guy like Ralph Rangnick in, and you're like, yeah, that's your interim manager. He's going to do you till the end of the season, and it's going to cover you. For me, I think that it's all about like getting someone in, and someone who's competent and can do the job well. For me, I mean, I pin my colours to the mast pretty quickly with this one. I would be looking at Michael Tidser. I think that he's probably the best candidate. He's got Kelty punched above their weight. He joined Kelty after Dean McKenzie and Andrew Barrowman were there, and he's done a really good job to get them up the table. And based on what I've seen, comments from other fans, I would sort of put my faith in their words. He's really been in a position where he got them playing better football than John Potter did. I don't think that there would be any benefit to sort of leaving it to the end of the season just with the instability at the club at the moment, because I feel like the club is in a relatively sort of fluctuating period where it isn't as stable anywhere near where it should be, given stability that we had under Ian Murray last season. Other than that, again, I know that Scott had mentioned them as well. Barry Robson, I think, would be a good shout. And I know that, Graeme, you were quite enthusiastic about Gordon Forrest being another one. I don't know as much about him, but I think that he went over to China but very quickly left. But yeah, for me, I would be going after Michael Tidser. I think he would be the sort of prime candidate for us. I know that there would need to be an agreement of like compensation, whether he's doing anything outside of football, but would offer an opportunity for an upcoming manager. It's between really, if you're looking at that league below, it's him or Andy Graeme in terms of the part-time managers that would potentially be available. If you were picking from that. But again, I go back to the point that, look, before nobody had heard of Neill Collins really too much. And for me, I would give him, if you were looking for a rating for Neill Collins out of 10, I would give him a solid 6 out of 10. Like, he never sort of changed the season or anything like that. Kept us in a similar position to when he first joined. Made a few interesting signings, but let's be honest, the football never kicked on to the degree that I think anyone hoped with the board, with what they were saying after Ian Murray left, given the length of time that we had to wait. Look, the football didn't improve. I get that you've got the likes of Brown, Vaughan, laterally Callum Smith, Sam Stanton all missing. But yeah, I think that we really need someone to kick us on and give them that second half of the season to build up. I'd be the gap for me between us and Thistles at a point where really within the next few weeks we're very much into flirting away from it, and just I know that they're far ahead. A lot of people will be writing it off already, particularly the fact that we need to add in a new manager. But you really want to see someone come in, ideally someone that's going to get fans saying, actually, that's a really good appointment. And this is so easy for me to sit here and say, for the guys in the boardroom, it's a lot more difficult than this, given all the factors. But yeah, to get someone in that's going to get people saying, actually, that's a good appointment, not someone that's going to, again, touched on the name, Liam Fox earlier on in some press reports. Someone like that's just not going to inspire anyone, are they? And you're going to just get fans looking at it and just say, that's a shit appointment.
I mean, I can only speak for myself, but Michael Tidser doesn't tick many boxes for me. You're talking about a guy who's doing fine. He's doing fine. He's doing good, probably. He's doing good with Kelty in League One. It's not like, and this is a really easy thing to go back to, and I realise that we're working in a different dynamic now. He's not a better manager than Ian Murray. Like that to me, that would be a tacit admission. It absolutely has. But I don't see how that. And like, look, you can only deal with the reality of today. If he's the best manager available, that's all you can do. But that to me would be a massive tacit admission, effectively, that sacking Ian Murray was categorically the wrong decision.
Sure.
I would also be surprised if he's kind of top of the list, given the relatively unorthodox nature of the shortlist first time around. You know, as you say, none of us, for what it's worth, had Neill Collins on the list. I don't imagine many of us had David Healy. There was rumours about Tim Clancy. Was he at Derry City, possibly?
Yeah.
I might have got the club wrong there. These are the names that were kind of coming out after a little while, as opposed to the Liam Fox, where they've somebody at the Daily Record's just gone, stick a name up.
Yeah.
No, we've not done one of our patented 60-word articles for a while. Just spin the wheel of fortune on guys who are assistant managers at B teams. Like, we'll see the names that come out. As I say, I would be surprised if Andy Barrowman's shortlist has those kind of names on it. But
see if it has a shortlist of a manager who's got a list of centre forwards like that can come and give us, because we've got a few managers now in our history who have a lack of the ability to spot a centre forward. So this manager has a couple of centre forwards. Don't care who he is. Yeah, he could be the worst human being in the world. Bring him in.
Maybe we just go for Michael McIndoe just to make the interviews really easy, because he works with Dave at Edinburgh City TV, so Davey Hancock's not too far of a stretch.
I disagree with one of the points that was. I was going to say, one of the points that was made earlier on about us needing to go for a manager that's not in work. I actually completely disagree.
Me too.
If my brief understanding of how this clause works is that we've probably been paid what it would have cost us to pay him for the entirety of his contract, is probably somewhere in and around it. So I would hope we effectively have a free hit in terms of financials, in terms of someone else is effectively going to pay for our manager for the next at least season, if not season and a bit. So I think we should be going after somebody who is the right man for the job, or like Duncan says, or not. I mean, propose. I suppose it's not necessarily your opinion, but leaving it to the summer. Like, don't do it quickly. Do it properly. If we've got somebody available that's good, great. If not, can we no chuck money at somebody who's going to half-arse it to the summer and then have to worry about what we're doing in the summer?
So this is where I think it gets really interesting, because you kind of want, like, in a sort of neutral setting, like if you stop thinking about specifically this Rovers team and the ridiculous situation that we're in, when you think about, like, bringing in a really good manager from somewhere, it feels like they come in with, like, I'm about to say a load of buzzwords that don't really mean anything, but like identity and a philosophy, and they have their way of playing and all this stuff. And it almost feels like that's what we don't have time for.
Yeah, totally.
Like we're saying, like the players have had to adapt and adapt and adapt. We almost need like a pragmatist, someone who'll just come in and just go, right, who are you? Where do you play? You're best at left sound. You play left wing. Right, cool. What about you? No bother. Right. And like, because there's not enough time to take, which is, I think, effectively what Neill Collins needed, which was like 6 weeks to get messages across. Robbie, you said a minute ago about 6 out of 10 for Neill Collins. I think that's generous, personally, based on what he's actually achieved. If you'd said to me, like, how do you feel about Neill Collins as your manager going forward? I'd have been more optimistic than that. I'd have said that I think he's got potential to turn into a really good manager for us. But when you cut it off after the time he's got, it's like he actually has achieved very little. Like, even in the games that we've won, we've not been coherent. We've not put 90 minutes together. Quite simply, I just don't think we have put even the Lithgow Rose in the Scottish Cup. First half, we were not very good.
Ayer's probably the only game that stands out from that. But I agree with your overriding point.
First half of Friday was absolutely shocking, and I don't think anyone was shying away from that as well.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
like
a fair point, though.
Sorry, mate, on you go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. I'm just going off Football Manager averages, which is 6 out of 10 is a very smack bang average.
But that, I just think
objectives for this season, though. Now, I mean, we're talking about getting a manager, but I think it's to survive. So, do we want to get a manager in that's just going to get us to survive, and then it's a different manager? We need to build on that. I'm edging towards we just have to go with what we got.
That's Graeme's leading to the end of the season.
Sort of thing.
I disagree with that. I think that it's just kicking the can down the road. That's the thing for me. Like, I get that you get more time in the summer, but really, like, is the situation really going to be that drastically different in the summer that we're not going to look at the same shortlist of names that we've already got from places? And I get that might not be the sort of fun that the board are fishing on, and sort of looking for their manager. But yeah, I just feel like you need to crack on with it, because you just see, that McPake's getting his jotters, and realistically within the next few weeks, that's coming. And then Dunfermline are then going to be in the market, exactly the same market that we're in. So it's just about, for me, I think, again, I would just completely be looking for someone that's kicking us on forward, moving on. And again, I wouldn't want a sort of continuity candidate just to be like, we'll get Craig Levine in to cover us to the summer. That for me is just, I don't think that would be a good direction to go in. But I do understand.
He was always the go-to guy, wasn't he?
I think because what it comes, so Carol, I think it's a really good question. It's like, what's the plan? And actually, what I'm almost most interested to find out is the thing that you will never find out, which is like the board members in their own minds. How are they thinking about it? Not what they're telling us, not what they're telling each other, but actually, what it's like, you go home and you shut the door and you're like that. How has today been? And you're like, I know, at that point, in that moment, the door shuts, and the guys in the board going, we just need to get to the summer. Like, can someone, we've, again, use a little bit of language, like, we've fucked this. Like, actually, this season is now effectively written off. Now, I don't think they are, if I'm honest, because there's loads of football to be played. If it was me, I would be thinking, we are one good appointment away from finishing the playoffs, because there's enough football to do it. Like, if we bring in, and this has been quite a negative podcast, to be fair, we maybe should have tried to find an optimist for somewhere. But, like, if we make a really good appointment, and this is the way to look at it, is to go, actually, we tried to appoint somebody, 6 out of 10, right? Fine, he's away, and we've been paid for him to go away.
Yeah, true.
And I know this is the pretty popular opinion kind of outside of the Rovers. I think people from the outside are going, you spent a month to bring that guy in, no discernible improvement, and someone else is giving you money for him to go away. Like, that's a free hit.
Yeah, and I think that's just the...
Go and get a 9 out of 10 manager, and you'll finish in the playoffs. Like, that's probably the way to think about it. But, again, Robbie, I'm going to use your own words against you. You said earlier, it's easier to make a bad appointment than a good one. Or certainly it's as easy to make a bad appointment. And Carol, to your question about what does this season look like? At the very end of yesterday's podcast that I realise nobody's listened to. But if you get to the end of that podcast, I was talking about how it seemed to have been like we might be getting away from a relegation battle and back into like, oh, this could be a transitional season. Like, this now is a transitional season.
Yeah.
It could be a transition to something terrible, and I hope it isn't, and I don't think it will be.
At best.
But at best, you have a new manager. We could hire a manager tomorrow, and at best, he's only in the job 6 months by the time the season finishes. Like, this is now at best a transitional season. And as you could get, if you hire a brilliant manager, he could go, new manager bounce that lasts for 4 months, and we finish 3rd or 4th. But that looks very difficult for me. I find that a very difficult scenario to imagine, because again, as it's the adjustment, it's the rejig, all that stuff. The players having to win, a new personality, all that kind of stuff. I think what it comes down to, though, actually, is it's the personalities involved will make that decision. It's the availability of managers, and that's the bit obviously we don't have at the moment. Because if there's loads of great managers available, great, hire one of them. If there's no great managers available, fine, get John Potter and Colin Cameron to take it till the end of the season. That's actually going to be the biggest factor, is who's available. But it doesn't feel great. I think it's probably the kind of end point on that. Obviously, the other thing as well is we've not heard anything from Starks Park on this yet, other than the kind of initial statement. This is a very slight aside. I don't know if anybody went and read the Sacramento Republic statement on it, but the
wording is amazing. It's like there's no way that you can work out that Neill Collins is left in a short period of time.
Yeah,
it's like it makes him sound fantastic.
It's like, for a period, he was in Scotland for some reason. We don't know why. It's nothing to do with us. But the bit that caught my eye is, in the way that you do when you hire a new manager, Rovers will do this at some point in the next 30 or 40 days. The statement starts to list all the good stuff about him, but it goes into the individual player awards while he was manager at Tampa Bay, including winning goalkeeper of the year. Now, Neill Collins might be a good coach. I'm fairly sure he can't take that much credit for winning goalkeeper of the year. That goalkeeper had a fairly large thing to do with that, I would imagine. So, we'll see who we get. Hopefully we can get a goalkeeper of the year to come in and be manager as well. Right. I think that will probably do us for now. As I say, for lack of other information. It will be very interesting to see. I think we were probably due for an Andy Barrowman, Davy Hancock, Frost Nixon 1-to-1 anyway. So I think
that's what I was going to be full of people just sort of saying, announce the manager now, for the next
Yeah, we'll see.
I wonder if the delay in having someone out is to do with learning from the last one.
Maybe.
we'll have a
No.
manager in place by boom, and it didn't happen. So it's maybe a case of actually we maybe shouldn't be so bullish this time. We should maybe take
Yeah.
a step
This
back
one
and
is
go.
Doing retakes.
100% reactionary,
Aye.
this one, isn't it? Because it's
Aye.
obviously, we hadn't, I mean, in theory, we had no idea it was coming. Certainly the fan base did. I don't know about the board, but you'll never know.
Aye.
I actually, I have a fair bit of sympathy for them, to be totally honest, because it is one of these things. There's nothing you can do. Like if a guy with $217 million in the pockets of his, cowboy shirt turns up and says,
That's the wrong team, mate.
"Right enough, I got that completely back."
We're the Cowboys. They're the Indians.
Turns up anyway. Someone
Don't think we
with
can say that either.
$217 million says, "I'm taking your manager." There is nothing you can do about it.
No, there
And
isn't.
if they happen to be in California, it's even harder. But the wider situation is very much one of this board's own making. And I think that's the bit that you kind of can't get away from. As you said earlier, you introduce this level of volatility and these things can happen. It can happen at any time, but yeah, it's sympathy in the moment, but then, as we said right at the start, if you make bold decisions, you get judged on your outcomes. This is why they're called bold decisions.
Mm.
So
Ian Murray must be having a laugh there now.
must have been absolutely ending himself yesterday.
Early Christmas present.
And I tell you this, he will be at East End Park in jig time as soon as McPake's sacked. They will pass each other in the revolving door out onto Halbeath Road. Just never been so certain of anything in all my life. Like, he is categorically going to be the next Dunfermline manager.
If it's any consolation, he did really terrible against his ex-employers when he was Rovers manager. So fingers crossed he continues that trend. But then conversely, Fife
That's
Derby
true.
wins.
And Rovers have a very good record in Fife derbies when Ian Murray's managing one of the teams. Hopefully that can continue.
Fingers crossed. Right, thank you everybody for listening. 2 episodes in the one weekend. That's an awful lot for you to hear from us, but I think it was probably warranted
the
given
last
the
one.
news. Yeah, Christ knows what happens next, but we will be along for the ride regardless. Have a wonderful Christmas, as Robbie said at the top of the show. Jump onto the Food Bank's website, give what you can. It's very, very, very worthwhile. And if Santa Claus brings you a job offer in California for 5 times your current salary, grab it with both hands. Thank you and goodbye.